Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Chewy. So the research that I'm going to present to you today is titled Community Structures of Coral Reefs Around Peninsular Malaysia. So this is actually the west side of Malaysia. So why is Peninsular Malaysia considered important area of coral biodiversity? Because it has recently reported a total of 323 coral species. This represents approximately about 80% of the number reported from the Coral Triangle. So here you can see the Coral Triangle actually includes countries like Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Island. And why is Coral Triangle numbers are so significant? It's because Coral Triangle represents about 75% of the coral biodiversity. And recently, there is serious destruction of coral reefs in Peninsular Malaysia. It's because the resort facilities by the tourism, and second is because the sedimentation. So in this research, we have gone through total 11 study sites. It can be split into West Coast and East Coast. For each island, it's about 2 sites, except for Tioman Island, there are 3 study sites. So now, imagine yourself as the researcher, and you are arriving at site A. You have to put down a 10-meter transect lines for each site, and this brown line is your transect lines. Then you will notice there are measuring marks that will attach every 0.5 meter, which means you have to take a pictures of an area of 0.25 meters square evenly at both sides of the transect lines. So a total of 20 photographs were taken along each 10-meter transect line. Then you have to repeat for another 10 transect lines at the same site, which means for one side you have about 220 photographs, and for 11 sites you have about 2,200 photographs. After you collect all these images, you can analyze using the software called Analysis. So here you can see they basically help you to trace the coral outline and calculate the coral coverage. For this case, non-acropora massive, the total coral coverage is about 424.1 cm square. However, it is not suitable for complicated morphology, such as acropora branching here. But we can use another software called Halcon. So Halcon helps us to differentiate between live corals and the bottom characteristics such as the sands and rocks. And after we have the live coral coverage, we can actually group them under the coral health condition. So as you can see here, if there is a score of 85%, then they will fall under the excellent coral health condition, which in this case, actually there is no site that falls under excellent coral conditions except for good coral conditions. So there are site IDE, star here, falls under good coral condition. And there are sites that falls under the poor coral conditions, which is A, and J. So as you can see here, Perhentian Island actually has one study site that falls under the poor and the other one at good. And which site has the most and least genera? Most is site E, 19 genera, and the least genera at site B, 8 genera. And one thing to mention is site E actually has the most genera, and actually the coral health condition also falls under the good condition. So which genera dominates? Actually, it's the Acropora genus that dominates about 32.62%. And here we can see the analysis between the transect lines. So we, at the x-axis here, actually they are groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the y-axis here is the dissimilarities. So if we split them at the 69% dissimilarities, then we are able to see group 1 over here, and then group 2 over here, and group 3 over here, and group 4 over here. Basically, we look through 110 transect lines, and then we find the similarities between them, and then we would know that group 2 here actually is the most typical community. So what are the communities about? So this is more detail. And then at the x-axis here, we are able to see the life form categories. For example, like Montipora branching, Acropora branching, stuff like that. And then at the y-axis, we are able to see the average percent cover. So basically, these are data from the 110 transect lines. And at the group 1, we can see the total live coral coverage is about 13 here, the lowest among groups. So compared to group 2, and compared to group 3, and compared to group 4, actually group 1 has the lowest live coral coverage percentage. Then we can see the group 2, the live coral coverage is about 40%. Then how do you see the dominant? Actually, you can see here, the dominant, the highest numbers is actually the Acropora. If you look down, it's the Acropora branching and the Montipora branching. Then group 3, you can see the live coral coverage is the 43%, which is the highest among group, and the dominant is Porites massive. Then this is group 4, live coral coverage 28%. The dominant is the Heliopora blue coral. Now, just now we studied about 110 transect lines. What if we study between study sites, which is 11 study sites? So we differentiate them again using this graph dissimilarities. And then at dissimilarities 43%, we are able to group them into 5 groups. Here is group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so, and then this is the MDS plot. The MDS plot, one thing very interesting is they actually group those sites that are very similar together. So actually E and F are very similar, that's why they group them together. So now if we look at the bigger pictures, this actually can form into another group called East Coast. And then the blue color circle actually can group into another bigger circle called West Coast. So that means they actually are very different. Now we look into the simple analysis. The figure A here actually shows the similarities between group of sites. And then the figure B here shows the differences between group of sites. Now we can look at the figure over here. I'm sorry, the words. Okay, so here you can see the group IV compared to the group I. Actually, group IV contributes more to the differences between group IV and group I. That means actually, group IV is very, very different compared to group I. Then you can see, well, when comparing group IV to group 2 also, then they are also more abundant in group IV. The group IV contributes more to the differences between them. And then here also, and while group IV compared to group B, also group IV contributes more. So that means group IV is very different compared to the other groups. So now take home messages. First is because the purpose of the study is to evaluate the present coral condition. Unfortunately, none of the sites actually falls under the excellent condition. But actually, the result shows that it is pretty similar to the coral reefs in Southeast Asia. Then the second take-home message is actually to review the dominant coral community. Here we find out that actually Acropora are the dominant, then to Porites, then Montipora. It might be caused by the tolerance of sedimentation or turbidity. Last take-home messages is to describe the coral community structure biogeographically around Peninsular Malaysia so we can do studies in the future. So fast-growing corals like Acropora, right, they actually become dominant more readily compared to the others. But for the hydrographic conditions, actually Porites is more dominant. But one thing to mention is we actually can still find Acropora at hydrographic conditions. It's just not that much, not that abundant. Yeah. Then the coral diversity was low on the west coast compared to the east coast. If you guys remember just now, like the most typical community is the group IV, and they actually falls on the east coast. So east coast has the most coral diversity. It may due to the physical disturbance during the northeast monsoon season at the east coast. So that means actually monsoon season and a little bit of physical disturbance is good for coral reefs diversity. Therefore, it is necessary to have research about the relationship between the monsoon wind and also the coral reef diversity. Then hopefully this study contributed to broader information on coral reef ecology and for future use as well. Thank you for your attention. That's all for my presentation.
You talk about the coral in Malaysia, and I don't why I have to know this.
So to repeat your questions, you asked why I choose this paper about the coral reef community structure in Peninsular Malaysia, to be specific, because I'm a Malaysian. So as you guys know that actually Malaysia is considered a paradise for scuba diving lovers, and there are a lot of coral reef diversity. So I would like to know actually, is there any serious problem that they are facing? And is there any research or investigation that we can carry out to protect better the coral reef?
An extended question about the report, but not the main.
Oh, okay.
Is there any factor that the areas that have more abundant species of corals than others?
To repeat your question is why Acropora is the more dominant compared to the others, right? Okay, so actually they didn't, it's an extension question and only, so here I believe they have done a research before by the Yamazato 1991. They actually found out that it's because it's fast growing. That's why it becomes dominant more readily in normal conditions. But for hydrographic conditions, actually is the porites is compared to the Acropora and other species. Hope it answers your questions. Thank you.
Do you think that this paper can apply to Taiwan's coral reefs or some place in Taiwan? Because you are talking about the Malaysia coral reef, but also Taiwan has the coral reef too.
Yeah.
But maybe not this type. But do you think there's connection between the paper and the Taiwan and Malaysia?
So to repeat your question, you actually asked about is there possible connections between this research and the coral reefs in Taiwan, right?
Yes.
Actually, in my opinion, I think that there might be some similar points, but there are bigger differences because Taiwan is a four-season country. You have winter, so you have to conduct studies in different seasons. But in Malaysia, it's because we are all year summer, so there might be more differences compared to similarities, I would say. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not a major on the biology oceanography. Okay, so I ask some easy question. Okay, I don't know how you count these species.
It's not me who counted.
The paper. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the species? Actually, they have two software. One is the analysis and one is Halcon. Actually, they will give this software enough images for them to learn. It's like AI thing, and then they are able to differentiate using these images. Then they will straight away tell you that this is not a corpora massive, and the live coral coverage is about how many.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't count under the sand? Or
Yeah. We don't count underwater. We just take images, like what I said just now. We just take photographs, and we bring these photographs using the software analysis. Then they will do the analysis for us. Thank you.
I want to ask the question about how this research make grouping the group 1, 2, 3. Can you explain it again?
Okay. True. You mean this one or the one before?
Just how they group the different corals together to group 1, 2, 3. Because I have seen that the group 1, 2, 3 they have included some have included the same genus. So I wonder how they form this group.
Is it this group 1, 2, 3, 4? Or
Yes, this
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so actually, right, there should be a table, but it is missing from the research. That is, actually, there should be a table about 110 transect lines, which is, let's say, for study sites A, then there are 10 lines, right? So there actually, there should be A1, A2, A3, A4, and then until like K11, and then there should be one is the title is the transect lines, then the other is the live coral coverage, then is the life form categories, then only we are able to group these.
It's grouping by the location and the type of coral together.
Yes, this is grouped by the 110 transect lines. But let's say if you group by the study sites, then it's this graph over here.
Thank you.
No worries.
This is our very first talk of this class, so we thank the brave Chewy for demonstrating this fluent talk. But in my opinion, because you are from Malaysia, I think your spoken English is much better than most Taiwanese students. And so in many times, I think you spoke too quickly. So you have to slow down a little bit. Yeah. And then it's also good that from time to time I think especially here, like, no, this is your study site. And then at some point you start to show the data next to your study site, because I have seen her paper. In her original paper, there were a lot of tables. And these tables usually say, okay, site A, site B has specific results. And here she basically put the data next to the map, like this one, and also this one, and she also have a genera map. So this is very straightforward for the audience to know, okay, this location, how it looks like, etc. So if I want to go scuba diving, I may choose this place, for example. And then also, she also has short sentences. You see that very often, short sentences with bullets and colored keywords. So these are all very nice. Okay, but of course there's space for improvement. Okay, so for example, there's from time to time where I think there is unnecessary space. For example, like this one. In this slide, the key point should be the image here, not the text here, right? But the image is actually very small. When I was standing there, I could not see the text here. So this should be made very, very large so that it's easy for aged woman like me to see this easily, okay? This is just one case. There are other places where you can find this. And then there are also from time to time where you seem to have prepared something, but you didn't read it through, like a sedimentation. You just said, like what is the serious destruction? You just said sedimentation, then finish. While you actually have many other things here. So I think your slides and your lines should be consistent. That would be easier for the audience to follow, okay? And the same situation also happened in your, something like your take-home message. We talk about it later. And then, okay, so, and then that's related to the question of Yuki, where she asks about the cluster analysis. I don't know how many of you know this, but I think at least the first thing is I couldn't see this clearly. I couldn't see this when I was standing there. So you always should consider make it larger. And then I actually don't know what are the codes here. I don't know what they are. So you have to say, because you have two cluster analysis results, so you have to say clearly what are these, and later you start to say, apparently, I don't know if these are the major groups by after analysis, but groups of what? Is it groups of corals or groups of sites? Which one?
This one?
Yes,
This one is group of
transects.
transect lines.
Then you have to say that clearly, okay? Because I was thinking, what is the groups? Groups of what? And furthermore, there are actually many new terms. Sorry. New terms like a digitate, submassive, tabulate. So I think it would be more friendly. You see there are a lot of space here. It would be more friendly to show some image to help with this. And okay, and then here you have a second one. And considering your earlier slides, I would suggest that you simply put the results next to the map. Okay? So then it can be easily seen. Okay, this is East Coast and this is West Coast next to your map. Then this one is super confusing. I really don't know what it is about, especially considering you have actually two group analysis and you have group here, you have group here, you have group here. I really have no idea what you're talking about. So you really need to consider how to improve this. And also the text here, I basically cannot see any. Okay, so this one is problematic. Then the take-home message in principle should be as short as possible. So I think in the your slide structure, you mix discussion with take-home message. Because in generally take-home message shouldn't more than 2 slides, basically. So you mix discussion with take-home message. Take-home message should be very short in order to be taken home, okay? So like this one is totally unacceptable, super long, okay? So next time, it would be great to just discuss right after you show the data. Then condense your take-home message to no more than 2 slides. Okay, I hope to see your improvement next time. Thank you, Chewy.